Welcome to another episode of the Daring to Transcend podcast. Today, we are going to visit with Christina Padron from Florida, and we are going to be diving into strategic leadership. I am super excited to welcome Christina Padron to the show today. Christina is an experienced principal investigator, program manager, research and human factors engineer with over 15 years of experience in managing the design, development, and evaluation of virtual assessment and training tools for a variety of military research organizations. In her current role as a VP of Partnerships and Growth at Dynepic Incorporated, she is responsible for leadership of strategic partnerships that facilitate the Dynepic ecosystem of integrated training and operational products, as well as leadership over Dynepic's growth opportunities. Christina is passionate about working closely with all stakeholders, including ecosystem partners and military and commercial customers, to ensure that their needs are seamlessly met. So that is a mouthful in that introduction. But it sounds really interesting. So tell us at least a little bit more about what all that means and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. My background, I'm an industrial engineer by education. So I have a bachelor's and master's in industrial engineering. And so I specifically went after that career path because I learned about the career field of human factors engineering, which is kind of the looking at the, design and the engineering of things from the human perspective, whether it's kind of the usability of how do people think and how to design accordingly, or looking at kind of the, measurements of the human body. I specifically was very interested in the cognitive side. And so anyways, I, kind of started off in that path. It turns out the military is very interested in making sure that especially the training systems and the things that they use are very, usable and are really designed well for the military members. And so that's the majority of my career really has been spent working for small businesses that have been developing kind of products to support training for military members.
Wow, that is really cool. And so, industrial engineering is not something that you normally hear about on a day-to-day basis. Although I love the idea of, the whole human factors piece of that. How did you even get interested in that in the first place?
Yeah, so great question. Actually, it's kind of an interesting story, I think. So I decided to do engineering, and I did my undergraduate degree at Purdue University. In the engineering program there, you actually don't declare a discipline of engineering until your sophomore year. So your freshman year, you take, science, math, the calculus, physics, chemistry, all of those classes. They also have you take a 1 credit hour course just to learn about kind of the different disciplines of engineering to decide what to choose. And then they had a separate at Purdue, they had a women in engineering, just 1 credit hour course.
Okay.
And so as part of that course, they set us up with these pen pals from industry, women in industry who were engineers and different, types of engineering careers. And so I was matched up.
That is so cool. I love that. I love that idea.
It changed my life, honestly. So this woman was a human factors engineer. So I remember I said to her, what is that? So she sends back a paragraph, just high level describing it. And I immediately went back, called my parents and said, I know what I'm going to do. This is it. And so from that.
One paragraph. Just yes, this is it. That is so cool.
It was awesome. It's a combination. I've always been very interested in psychology and relationships and that kind of thing, but also the engineering side, right? The kind of part, math and science, whatever. So to combine those in a career was this is perfect for me. So then I went and looked at, and then it turned out industrial engineering is generally the discipline of engineering that includes human factors.
Okay.
But industrial engineering actually was a perfect fit. It has a lot to do with being very efficient. How can you make systems more efficient? How do you optimize things? How do you design kind of the system? Not necessarily, mechanical engineering things are a little bit more of the, certain products and things.
Right.
Industrial engineering has to do with the whole system. And so human factors is how does the human optimally fit into the system, and how do you design it for the human, that kind of stuff. So
I love that. That is so cool. I will confess that I have never heard of that. I mean, I've heard of the human factors design piece of things before, but the whole idea of just building a whole discipline and a career around that is just, I mean, I agree with you. That's fascinating. The idea of systems and flows and people and psychology working together is, that is so cool. And wow, that must just really expose you to lots of different people and ideas and things that are going on in our world. So
yes. Yeah, it's a fun spot to be in. Well, and so my career, a lot of it has been, again, designing kind of training systems for the military. But even if you think about it, within the military, there's so many different roles and jobs and positions that they have. And so I get to learn just a little bit, just enough to, kind of get an idea for what they need and then help design these systems that help them do their job better. So it's a really cool spot to be in.
That is really fun. So tell me a little bit about specifically the role that you're doing now with Dynepic.
Dynepic, yep. So at Dynepic, I'm currently the Vice President of Partnerships and Growth. And so we have a product that actually kind of brings together a lot of different training systems. So that's kind of the position that our product is in. Especially, I don't know if you're familiar with the like augmented and virtual reality types of training systems that are, becoming more and more prevalent. So our product that we have actually connects all those together. It's called the MOTAR platform. And so, but we don't actually develop the training systems ourselves, the training content. We really want to be focused. We don't want to compete with all of the other companies that are developing this amazing, training technologies and things. Right. We want to be that point where they connect and then the military can access them kind of in one spot.
Right.
So as you can imagine, partnerships are very important for that, right? Yeah. We want to kind of be working well, and it's a pretty complementary relationship since we don't develop the training content for other companies. So I'm responsible for kind of all, that whole ecosystem of vendor, the relationships with, our customers that are in the military, and then also kind of the business development opportunities. So I have a team that works, that's a lot of stuff. So I have an incredible team that, between us, we all kind of work on that, the new business and the, the partnerships, managing those relationships and things.
That's really cool. So in all of that, with all of your experience in, the human design and the systems and all of that stuff, that's got to really inform your leadership in really interesting ways.
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting I just interact with a lot of people all the time, maybe, probably more than the average person in a job, right? Because of the partnerships. And I've also had the perspective of, kind of working my way up as well, right? In over the course of my career. So I think I've gotten a lot of my leadership has been informed by kind of what worked well for me, leaders that I had, right? And the way things that I appreciated that they did. And then maybe some things that, didn't work as well for me and trying not to do those things, but I get to see a huge kind of gamut of different leadership styles and types of leadership roles and stuff. And so that I think guiding light is really what would I want, right? Like how would I want the leader to react in that? And I try to emulate that as much as I can.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because, we do that. I think we often as human beings say, which is a good thing. How do I want to be treated? You know, how do I want to be, you know, what kind of respect and stuff that I want? You know, sometimes the challenging part of that is sometimes other people don't necessarily know what we want and want the same things that we want, right? And adjusting to those. And I'm sure you run into that kind of situation, even with, you know, helping develop training and the systems and all of that, because not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody interacts with training material the same way. So how do you, both in your own leadership and in the work that you do, adapt to the different styles and needs of people around you?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, if I, you know, kind of start to feel that something isn't working as well, I try as much as possible to just be very straightforward. Just ask for the feedback, right? Is it, hey, it seems like something, you know, isn't going so well, or, you know, as I'm maybe watching you use this training system, it looks like you're having trouble with this aspect of it. Can you talk me through what are you expecting to happen, right? What are you looking for? And then just, you know, how you tell me, how do you feel like this could be done better, right? Like what would be, so that to me, that's the easiest, kind of most straightforward way, is to just ask, not make assumption, or try not to make assumptions. Just ask, right? How could this be done better? And a lot of times I think people appreciate just like, oh, okay, yeah, let me, like, that's.
No, they really do, because, you know, with almost anything in life, whether it's leadership, it's training, because I have a background in training too. I've done lots of training in my life. And to your point, you know, it's setting expectations, right? Both from you communicating the expectations of what you're going to deliver, and it's asking, you know, getting feedback to see if those expectations align. And that, you know, I mean, that goes with every relationship we have, from parenting to, you know, the most complex leadership things, is getting expectations as much in alignment as you can. I mean, obviously, sometimes it's impossible to get them in total alignment, but to get them in alignment as much as you can. And I've got to imagine that with all the research and experience and everything that you're doing, that's probably something that you've developed a lot of skills around, with those, with that kind of expectation, right?
Yeah. Well, so early in my career, it was really interesting, because I would do a lot of like kind of data collection, you know, usability testing type things of our products, the training systems, right?
Right.
And so I would take it to a military base and have them kind of use it. And in human factors, the big thing is you don't ask somebody what they want. You kind of try to watch, what do they do currently, right? If you're testing a product with them, you kind of observe what they're doing and ask them to do the task, right? And try to understand kind of where there's, you know, issues with doing the task and that kind of thing. So one thing I love about working with the military is that nobody has ever been shy about saying kind of, this is not, I mean, even to be honest, like even there's, in my past, I've had feedback where it was like, this seems like a cool training system, but quite frankly, I'm not going to have time to use it. Or like, it's not going to fit into my training course schedule, or that kind of, you know, so, which I was so grateful to get that feedback, because then I was like, okay, let's talk about, why is that, right? Is it just like, is there a way maybe we can cut up the training a little bit so it would fit better? Or you could just put it into some, you know, I don't know, like, let's talk about how I can make this product better to better fit your entire kind of situation, right, within the training schedule. So I love working with the military. Has never been shy about giving honest feedback, and I have always appreciated that.
Yeah, it's honest feedback and open communication is such a critical aspect of good relationships, period, but certainly good leadership and good product development. I think you made a really important point. This is so funny. You know, again, having done a lot of software development or design in my time, asking people what they want, right? What do you want? No one ever knows what they want. I mean, if you ask them what they want, they often will tell you what they don't want, right? They'll often say, well, I don't like this, this, and this about the current system or the current process. This isn't working. But at the telling you what they want, they can't always do it, right? So a lot of times I love the idea of, observing, of interacting during that process, and being able to talk to people and sort of get that feedback. And again, whether you're designing a training system or you're learning to lead a team, a diverse team, the watching, rather than just to go to somebody and say, well, what kind of leadership style works for you? A lot of times people have given this deer in that look like, this can't work.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that, all that experience just really, really helps you personally, as well as, all these other ways. So along the way from getting this letter in college and starting down this path, what do you think is the biggest risk that you've taken in your career?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that this was really a risk I chose necessarily, but so I actually, when I was in college, I participated in a co-op program. So I worked for GE for multiple kind of every other semester. Mm-hmm. And then even after that, throughout my master's degree, I had multiple internships. And so for large companies, Caterpillar, IBM. So I kind of just always assumed in college that I would go work for a large company. Well, I finished my master's degree right when the recession hit really hard. So I was looking for jobs. So I graduated May of 2009, right? So I was looking for jobs 2008, right when the recession hit. So all of a sudden, I actually was on path to go work at IBM. They had created a job rec for me because I had just done an internship with them. I was all, good to go. And then I got a email or something or a phone call saying, we're on a hiring freeze. There's nothing we can do. All the big companies suddenly were on a hiring freeze because of the recession. So I actually ended up at a small business in Orlando, Florida through connection. It was my one of my professors at Penn State, which is where I did my master's degree, had done his PhD with a woman in Orlando, Florida, who had her own small business doing human factors consulting. And so he was like, hey, I can connect you. Would you like? So anyways, of course, here I am in Pennsylvania. Yes, please. Orlando, Florida would be fantastic, right?
Why not Disney World every day?
I mean, seriously, I was like, yeah, and it was wintertime and stuff in Pennsylvania, right? I was like, yes, please. So anyway, so I ended up at this small business doing work with the military, right? Which I never really thought, but of course, defense contracting is a lot more recession proof than, kind of some of the commercial space. So anyways, I don't know if that would be, because it was kind of this very big turn, a pivot from where I expected my career to go right out of schooling. But it has served me and it really has put me on a path that I never expected, but it's been awesome. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy working for small businesses, it turns out. So it's worked out really well for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And to your point, sometimes we end up taking risks unexpectedly because we're forced into them. Or, something dramatic happens, which, I love that. But what I love about it is how much you've embraced it. Yeah. How much you've said, okay, this is very different than what I expected, but let's try it. And, there are people that in your situation would have just said, okay, I'll do this until I can get back to IBM or I can get back to, the big companies, which obviously is the right path for some people. What particularly do you like about working for smaller organizations?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I What I found is there's a lot more. Well, number one, you're wearing a lot of hats all the time, right? So you come in a certain role generally, and then you find you tend to start doing other. I love that because then I get to, learn a little bit about some of these different roles, program management and business development and, research and all these different types of things. So that's one thing that I know is not for everybody, but I love it. And then there's also a certain amount of, I think there's like less bureaucracy kind of in small businesses, right? So in general, your voice is able to be heard a little bit more by leadership. I think just in general, when you're at a small, if you're
Sure.
at a company with 20, 50 people rather than like the IBMs of the world, right? So, so I enjoy that as well. But yeah, it's always a kind of a, you never know how things are going to get, small business kind of exciting, right? You're always, working to kind of build more business and hire more people and stuff. So anyways, I find it exciting.
Yeah, I love the wearing multiple hats piece too, because I get bored doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
So where do you see what big dreams do you have for your future?
Yeah. So that's a great question too. So I have been kind of reflecting on that question. I kind of thought about it. So I was thinking about the whole, like, what did you want to be when you grew up, right?
Yes.
And I don't remember ever having a specific thing. And so actually my parents were visiting recently and I asked them if they remembered any, job I want to do. They didn't remember anything either. So I think what I've decided is I'm always kind of focused on like the next goal, right? So like in high school, it was like graduating high school. What do I need to do to get into a good college? Like what, and then college, it was like, graduating. I figured out what major I wanted to have, that kind of stuff. And then I've kind of it's been like kind of what's the next right thing type of thing. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I don't have a, here's what I want to, it's really I love Dynepic. I love the company I'm at now. Like it's been very exciting. I've only been there for 4 years, but we've grown. I was employee number 7. I think now we have over 50 people. So it's been fun to help, kind of grow that company. And I'm excited to see where that continues to go. But I don't have like a bit, even my role I'm in now, I would never have guessed kind of a full-time like business development type of role for myself, but it makes a lot of sense in the current, company I'm at and kind of where I am in my career and stuff. So I don't have a great question for, big goals. I think
and that's okay. I used to hate it when people would ask me about, what's your 5-year plan? And I was like, I don't know what my 5-year plan is because I don't know what opportunities are going to come up in the next 5 years that I want to pursue. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Being open to new opportunities, being open to growth, which you clearly are, your willingness to take on new roles, new hats in a role, expand that. That's not always a bad thing. So don't apologize for that. It'll be interesting. It's always interesting to see, in hindsight, when you look back, what are the threads that have held everything together? Yeah. And, you may not have had a specific job that you wanted to do when you were a kid, but, clearly you were interested in people and psychology, like you said. And obviously somewhere along those lines, there were probably things about the systems and the engineering that came out in different things that you did. So I suspect the seeds of what you're doing now were planted way back then. Yeah. Maybe not in as obvious a form, but it'll be interesting to see where you go from what opportunities are going to present themselves next, whether it's bigger roles at Dynepic or, which I apologize for mispronouncing earlier, or or something else.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Go ahead.
The one thread that has been very common, I think, that I've realized is the relationships, right? So kind of building those relationships throughout your career. I mean, it really starts even, high school, college, but you never know where other people will end up and kind of how that might lead to other opportunities, to your point, with different things. So that's been a very interesting aspect of it. And I think, what I've learned is like, it's really critical to pay attention to, I think, the way that you're, treating people, interacting with people, no matter what the interaction is, because you never know what, where they'll end up or who they'll end up working with. There's, so the relationships throughout my career has been actually a very interesting, like a common thread, I think, that has, helped a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. And relationships are how we kind of navigate the world, right? I mean, we are relational people. And I think that's one of the reasons that women in particular bring so much to the table from a leadership standpoint. Not that men don't have relationships too, not saying anything negative, but women are in particularly wired for a relationship. Building community and wiring for a relationship. And so when we can leverage those, not in a negative way, but leverage those in a way of supporting each other and supporting the people that we come in contact and maintaining the relationships, that can be so critical and can lead us, to your point, to completely unexpected places and things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really important part, I think, of ever. I mean, like if I were to give career advice to new, like college students or something, that pay attention to the relationships, because you really honestly have no idea when somebody might, end up kind of back, even in a roundabout way, like interacting with you or something. So
yeah. And whether it's interacting with you to help you with your career or interacting with you so you can help them because you need help someplace. It's resources. All those connections and relationships become resources.
Yep, exactly.
In some way, shape, or form. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
I will say too, being in a field, so being in kind of a tech field is already male dominated, and then you add the military aspect on top of it, and it's like very male dominated, right? Like the kind of world that I operate in. So the female relationships, I think, are especially important. And I have been very grateful for the ones I've had. There's people that I've never kind of directly worked with, but I see them at conferences and we talk, so just having those, even that kind of shared experience too, as being generally kind of a minority in many of the places we are and stuff is really helpful to be able to talk about and, help each other out.
That's great. Actually, that's a really important point, and that does lead me to another question. I mean, in your roles, whether it's the leadership team of your company, the people that are working with you, and clearly your clients, a lot of them, it probably are mostly men. Are you often the only woman in the room?
Yeah. So, I will say generally I'm not the only woman in the room, and it has gotten better over my career, right? I mean, there were many times earlier in my career where I was the only woman in the room. It's gotten better. And I do. So for example, like I work for a female CEO right now who actually is an Air Force vet as well. So, cool. There's enough women that, generally it's not, now in 2024, there's enough, but it still is. You go to some of these conferences and you look around and there's not a lot of diversity. There's maybe a handful of women kind of, sitting in the audience. So, still, room for improvement, but it has improved over the years also.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that people like you who are developing and cultivating those relationships, whether they're with women who have gone before you or women that are coming up behind you, that you create a community, even within that of women, rather than a competitiveness, right? Which can sometimes happen, particularly in technology. I know there can be that real competitiveness, like, you're going to steal my intellectual property kind of thing. And, obviously there's still room for relationships without compromise. Compromising one's integrity. So I love that you're nurturing that and that you are part of the solution with it, right? You're one of the people, I can tell just by talking to you, you're one of the people that's kind of keeping that women community going in your field.
It's helped me a lot for sure. And I've seen, kind of a variety of different, speaking of, keeping your integrity and stuff, right? Like, it's not always easy for people to, sometimes it does feel a little bit more cutthroat and stuff. So I have been very appreciative of, the network of women that have really, been able to stand up for the right thing and, kind of make the right decisions and keep their integrity, even when sometimes it's really tough to do that in certain situations. So yeah, I try to emulate that as well.
That's awesome. I love that. So thank you, Christina, for sharing today. Your story has really been fascinating. We definitely dove into a different aspect with the military and the human design and this today. So it's been really a fun conversation. So thank you for sharing all your experience. If someone wants to get to know you, learn more about you or your company, how's the best way for them to reach you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That would probably be the best. Christina Padron on LinkedIn from Dynepic. So that would be the best way. Thank you so much for having me, Karen.
Absolutely. No, I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for joining us. Again, I hope you've enjoyed experiencing a little different world that we've dove into today and a little different look at leadership from a human design perspective. So in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about me, you can find me also on LinkedIn or my website, daringtotranscend.com. And don't forget to pick up a copy of one of my books, Discovering Power or Pursuing Truth, where you can learn more about different aspects of leadership in a fun and fictional story. Hope you join us again next week on the Daring to Transcend podcast.